Hey there, I'm Mr. Terry. I'm a high school history teacher. Welcome back to another History Teacher Reacts video. All right, today, let's take a look at the Constitution, specifically the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, and even more specifically, the First Amendment, the most cherished of them all. Now, I've learned that there's a group of people that believe that our First Amendment rights are being taken away from us, and they want to prove it by pushing those boundaries. And I believe that's what this LegalEagle case is about. This video is called First Amendment Auditors Are Crazy. So this is my first time checking out First Amendment auditors. So join me as I check this out and I'll give you my thoughts. All right, the LegalEagle original video is going to be linked down below. And like this video if you want me to check out more stuff like this. All right, here we go. So I got a couple questions I want you guys to help me with down in the comments. First, of course, saying that First Amendment rights are, sometimes limited or not fully able to exercise them is not something new. That's a lot of people may view that. And a big reason for that is our Constitution is often written so vague. And what constitutes, First Amendment rights of, again, things like free speech, freedom of religion, petition, assemble, all of those things. And so there's nothing new about that. So what I'm wondering is what these guys are about. What makes them different than anybody else that potentially claims like this? One thing I'm also wondering too, does this have anything to do with sovereign citizens? I did my first reaction to sovereign citizens a few months ago, and I feel like they would also be ones that maybe would get involved with this. In a Venn diagram, are they connected at all? Is this a totally different thing? Let me know, and let's do this.
Cops love getting videotaped. They'll never admit it, but they secretly love being on camera.
Really?
Which is why First Amendment auditors are universally loved throughout the country. It's not controversial at all.
Oh,
now, the introduction of smartphones has revolutionized citizens' ability to document the misconduct of police officers and public officials in real time. And with the advent of social media, these videos that shine a light on police brutality, such as Eric Garner, Walter Scott, and George Floyd, can go viral, bringing instant attention to the film subjects and even fame to the photographer.
I mean, a lot of people say that, filming stuff, again, like if you see some police brutality or something like that, has been something that's help us have more accountability, I guess, to those that are in authority and power. It protects yourself. It protects others, with crime. So we have dash cams, right? So I'm wondering where this is potentially out of the ordinary. Are these people, again, trying? We'll see.
And fun fact, before the advent of smartphones, police never infringed on anyone's First Amendment rights, at least according to the police.
No, but it was harder to prove,
in recent
right?
years, the filming of police has evolved into a growing social movement and online subculture known as First Amendment audits, where citizens, auditors, film their own encounters with government employees in public spaces to test whether the filmmaker's constitutional rights will be respected or violated.
Okay, so they test those that are supposed to protect First Amendment, like you're going to go there, do something, go up to a policeman, as I was saying at the beginning, and do something that is supposed to be free speech or something like that, or assemble, and then film if they're getting those rights stopped.
First Amendment auditors cast themselves as patriotic activists and citizen journalists fighting for transparency, accountability, and open government. This is an entire genre on YouTube.
Get somebody to tell you to leave, and then if you don't leave, you'll have to go to jail. Is that what you want?
No, I don't want that.
Then let's move on.
Let's not violate my rights, fellas. Let's go ahead.
Wow, look at this. Okay, hold on. Before, I'm listening to the video, but look down how popular this video is. This LegalEagle video is a year old, I think, or so. And this video, this guy's that we're checking out here, 160,000 views, about 161, and that was in 2020. From a channel, Honor Your Oath Civil Rights Investigations, 164,000 subscribers. So this is big content. I had no idea.
And hop back in your little vehicles and have a nice day.
You're interfering with their drive-through.
No, I'm not.
You can say you wasn't, but you were.
Inshallah. Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
This guy doesn't know what that means. He's just trying to push buttons. That guy, you could tell, is not Muslim. He doesn't know inshallah means.
You're doing that, but they're making the bank people nervous. So if you want to stand down where there's no businesses,
absolutely not. You're not going to violate my First Amendment rights to free speech on a public sidewalk.
We understand that there needs to be law enforcement.
Okay.
People are out there doing bad things, but when you have police officers, deputies, troopers doing the same damn thing as the people in the streets, That is an unsustainable system, man.
I mean, a lot of people are going to agree with that, right? The little accountability thing that, you know, police or whatever can push too far. So I'm sorry, I'm wondering where like the controversies, like that other guy with saying inshallah and having the sign, that guy was just agitating, being intentionally agitating, right? Like he was doing that on purpose. This other guy, I don't know.
But critics argue that First Amendment audits are not about defending the Constitution as much as they are a cynical vehicle for monetizing online outrage and unfairly maligning public servants. Many auditors can and do make thousands of dollars per month from their viral confrontations, videos that are often peppered with profanity and other deliberately provocative behavior. So who's right here? Well, it depends. Documenting police and public spaces finds its roots in cop watching, a civil rights era practice in which groups of private citizens patrolled urban communities with cameras to document any police misconduct. But in the mid-2000s, First Amendment auditing began to take shape just as handheld digital and smartphone cameras were becoming widely available. Typically videos documenting...
I mean, everything has... I swear, that's when you had like bum fights and all that stuff on... What was that one... E-Bombs World, like when I was in high school, that was like a thing where you'd watch all that kind of random weird content.
Misconduct have come from citizens who happened to be at the right place at the right time. Such was the case with Darnella Fraser, who at 17 years old recorded Officer Derek Chauvin kneeling on George Floyd's neck for nearly 10 minutes. But what differentiates First Amendment auditors from spontaneous recordings like Fraser's is that auditors deliberately seek out encounters with public officials rather than filming misconduct they just happen to witness. First Amendment auditor Zoe Perez, who goes by the name Furry Potato on YouTube, summed up the goal of auditing as follows, quote, "It's not only about shining a light on the crooked bad cops, but shining an even brighter light on the good cops. You put yourself in places where you know chances are the cops are going to be called. Are they going to uphold the Constitution or break the law?" One of the earliest First Amendment audit groups was Photography is Not a Crime, or PINAC, a Florida-based news website and advocacy group which focuses on the right to film police. PINAC was created in 2007 after its founder, veteran photojournalist Carlos Miller, was arrested for photographing a group of 5 Miami police officers conducting a traffic investigation. When the police officers asked Miller to leave and stop filming them, Miller reminded the officers that this was a public road and continued taking photos. Miller claims the officers then threw him to the ground and viciously beat him. The officers arrested Miller and charged him with 9 misdemeanors, including resisting arrest. Miller, who would be arrested 4 times in 7 years for his work, ultimately was acquitted of all charges, including having his 2007 resisting arrest conviction overturned on appeal.
Okay, so I mean, so far, I haven't seen anything that's crossing that line. Now, it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that the auditors, these First Amendment auditors, the difference between them is not just, again, somebody filming something happening as it's happening, but they're actually trying to test the limits. They actually, almost in a way, want them to break the rules. Because one thing I wonder, and help me out with this, if you're somebody that follows this stuff, let's say one of these First Amendment auditors goes to one of these, like, goes somewhere, is expecting to get apprehended, stopped, get trouble by the police, but he doesn't. And the cop is like, no, absolutely. Like, this is your right to do this. Do those guys put that content on where the cops are, to them and to their viewers, actually doing the right thing? Or do they only post the ones where the cops hassle them? That's where I wonder how honest some of it is, and where it might be the difference between people just like grifting it for views and people that actually are doing like an honest investigation and gathering data. Or is this purely motivated by, again, just content?
Acquitted of all charges, including having his 2007 resisting arrest conviction overturned on appeal. In recent years, though, First Amendment auditors don't just film police officers. Rather, they regularly enter state, local, and federal buildings, from libraries to post offices, just to see how government officials react to the post offices. So what does a traditional First Amendment audit look like? Well, as the Washington Post writes in its purest form, the auditor simply stands in a public space, films, or as is often the case, live streams, the encounter with staff and customers alike, and then refuses to put down the camera or explain or identify themselves if an officer approaches.
Okay, so I see that. By the way, these laws are very different somewhere else. There is a lot more privacy laws in a place like Japan, for example, where you can't just go out and just film strangers. Can't do that. They have a lot more, protection of people like that. In the United States, maybe it's a little more open. Now, I don't get the point, though, of going to like the library or the post office. What what thing do they think happens there that is like harmful, where there's these rights being taken away? You know what I mean? Like, I get it if you're in other places, but like a post office and a library, like what's going on there that's like infringing all these people's rights? I don't understand.
If there is no confrontation,
it's one thing, by the way, if it was like at a police station or I guess a courthouse in some ways. I know there's probably mixed laws about like filming in courts and things like that. But, you know, place where like there's police presence, because those could be places where you could see an overreach of authority.
Stop filming, the facility passes the audit. But if an employee attempts to stop filming, then the facility fails the audit. That's what First Amendment Auditor Accountability for All did in its 2019 review of the Foxborough Police Department in Massachusetts. Okay. Audits like this can be great press for the locality when the public officials respect individual rights, which is what happened in Foxborough. Accountability for All gave the Foxborough PD a glowing review, and it was written about in the local newspaper.
Online group gives Foxborough Police Department high marks on preserving First Amendment rights. Online group. Is this a First Amendment group? Remember I was telling you, do these auditors actually show the good things happening? Or again, is it just bad things happening?
Other audits, though, can result in arrests or injury to the auditor. In February 2019, Furry Potato, aka Zoe Perez, was accidentally shot by a security guard during an impromptu First Amendment audit outside a Los Angeles synagogue. As Perez live-streamed the encounter, a synagogue security guard standing behind a gate had his weapon drawn for 4 minutes.
Hold on, I want to look at the details on here. Security guard caught on video shooting woman in leg outside an LA synagogue. Okay, why? Let me go back 5 seconds.
During the encounter, a synagogue security guard standing behind a gate had his weapon drawn for 4 minutes, yelled at Perez to get away, and then fired a warning into the ground, causing the bullet fragment.
Why was there a guard there?
Leg. Prosecutors declined to file charges, stating that they lacked sufficient proof that the security guard used unreasonable force. In this case, it's worth noting that Furry Potato wasn't actually conducting a First Amendment audit per se. The synagogue security guard wasn't a police official or government employee at all. Instead, he was a private contractor. So Furry Potato's First Amendment rights were actually never in question or infringed upon. Even so, audits like this could be valuable for what they tell us about public safety.
2019, is this when there was that one synagogue shooting? I forget what year that was. So maybe synagogues were hiring security because there's been anti-Semitic, encounters. Is that probably what happened there?
Safety and accountability, certainly more so in and around actual government buildings. But let's talk about the legality of First Amendment audits. When is it legal to film public officials? But it should come as little surprise that the police do not take kindly to being recorded, despite what the introduction to this video actually said. Now, many police organizations oppose citizens recording them in the course of their duties, claiming that it puts their safety at risk and interferes with active police work. Some officers even tell citizens that filming them is illegal and, like what happened to Mr. Miller of Pinack, will arrest First Amendment auditors while filming. But is recording the police or public spaces actually illegal?
Okay, so my question with that one was, is it for trespassing or actually for the filming? Now, police officers film because they have body cams, and that's supposed to go both ways to, protect the officer from claims that people might say that they broke rules. And then also for, of course, people being apprehended by the police. It's supposed to be like win-win for everybody involved. So it seems like if the police can then film those interactions, can these other people. But here's something too, like if you were, you can film somebody like getting arrested, but like if you're the person getting like arrested, and I guess depends if it's a private or public place, can you be like, no, like I don't want to be filmed while I'm being arrested. You don't have my consent for that because that's going to look bad. You're going to go and put it online and stuff like that. And before I've even been convicted of a crime, innocent until proven guilty, right? But you show all this footage of somebody being, arrested, and they never had they've never been prosecuted for it. So like, is there a protection for people like that? And that'd be a reason you can't film potential police interactions with others? I don't know what the legality of that is.
Well, contrary to what this North Carolina police officer told this lawyer during a traffic stop, filming police is not illegal, and you actually do have a First Amendment right to record.
Sir, can you tell me what this new law is that I'm not allowed to record? sorry?
He said that there's a law I'm not allowed to record the police. I just wanted to know what that new law is.
Well, you said you were an attorney, correct?
I am. I've never heard of this law that you're not allowed to record the police anymore. It must be brand new.
Okay, well, they just recently passed it, so...
Like super recently? Seems like a strange law.
By the way, I know that finding a great lawyer can be really hard, but that's until now. My firm, the Eagle team, is now accepting new clients.
It's so different. Is
if
that
you've been
him?
injured or just
like
need a lawyer, we can represent you or help you find the right attorney.
Yeah, I know a lot of people
because you don't
will
need a legal team,
film themselves during
the Eagle
stops.
Team. Just check out the link in the description
just in
for
case
that.
something
Now back
goes
to First
wrong.
Amendment auditors. Oh boy. And while the Supreme Court has not directly ruled on
Obviously,
this
a police
matter,
officer is not
federal
going to
courts
love
in
that.
the 1st, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, and 11th circuits have upheld the right to record public officials in the course of their duties. The primary rationale for allowing the recording of public officials is the First Amendment audit right to freely discuss our government and the people's right to access information about their officials' public activities. In the case of Smith versus City of Cumming, the 11th Circuit articulated the reasoning, writing, quote, "The First Amendment protects the right to gather information about what public officials do on public property, and specifically a right to record matters of public interest." Courts.
What all is considered like public property? So like if you are, okay, you're at the post office and you're just in the lobby or whatever filming, okay, whatever. But like, what if you're like in the back and there's all this mail around? Like, is that public? Like, could you do that? I mean, you have all this mail, this information being passed around. Is that, cause like you can't go into somebody's like mailbox. That's like a felony, I believe, right? To go and mess and tamper with mail potentially. Could you film them in the back? You know what I mean? Like, are there certain parts of these government buildings that are public parts, then there are private parts?
Have also upheld filming public officials on the grounds that freedom of the press applies to citizen journalists and documentarians.
Can anybody say
just
their press?
As much as it does the formal members of the press, especially since more and more news is actually being gathered and disseminated.
Could you just walk up and say, "I'm the press"?
This was the 7th Circuit's logic in the ACLU versus Alvarez, reasoning that private citizens' right to make, quote, an audio or audiovisual recording, and then their, quote, right to disseminate the resulting recording of police officers performing their public duties falls under the First Amendment protection of gathering news and information, particularly about the affairs of the government. However, that's not always the case in all circumstances. Now, the great weight of case law clearly supports the First Amendment right to record public officials in the course of their duties in a way that doesn't interfere with those duties. However, First Amendment rights are not unlimited, and there are instances where recording could violate the law.
Okay, so I just want to process this. So it's saying the law is saying that you can do that, like do recording, as long as it doesn't prevent official duties from happening. Like you're interfering with something, stopping it from happening. I don't know, cop is chasing down a bad guy and you're like getting in the way, which doesn't allow them to do their job, like physically getting in the way or distracting them. Is that maybe what we're talking about here?
Not unlimited. And there are instances
what are
where
the limits? Have those been defined?
Courts upholding the right to record have also held that police may reasonably restrict some First Amendment rights, according to what's generally called a time, place, and manner restrictions. Examples of time, place, and manner restrictions include imposing limits on the noise level of speech, barring early morning or late night protests, or restricting the size or placement of signs on government property. Generally, these are content neutral restrictions, that they're not punishing any particular kind of speech. They are just limiting the time, place, and manner of the speech or the recording. For example,
so like, you can't do some big loud protest at night because it would be like a public nuisance or something like that. I guess you got to draw the lines on something like that. One scenario that I was just thinking about is like crime scenes. You know, you have crime scenes and they'll tape off, right? The yellow tape around the area because they don't want people to come in and mess with evidence. But then there might be an auditor coming in saying, "Hey, I got to get in there and make sure they're not like planting evidence." Like, is that, where does that draw in? Like, can you do that?
Versus Began, the First Circuit Court of Appeals, while acknowledging the right to film a traffic stop, also held that reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions on the right to film may be imposed when the circumstances justify them. In the context of First Amendment auditors,
they define
police officers might curb the right to film, quote, only if the officer can reasonably conclude that the filming itself is interfering or is about to interfere with his duties. Per Garrick, police officers may reasonably limit the right to record to maintain safety and control with incidental effects on First Amendment rights.
Remember how, by the way, so Princess Diana, Okay, it's back in what, the 90s or whatever. She, in her car, got in a car wreck that ended up killing her in England. And one of the reasons they said that happened was because the press, you know, basically like paparazzi, people that try to get photos and stuff and sell that. But the press technically were driving in a way that it like messed with the car, right? And they kind of blamed the press for that she ended up getting in this accident. But then, like, is that free press? Is that an example of the press getting in the way of the general lawful practice that people have the right to drive and stuff like that? So were those people in the wrong? I mean, if those press people, I got to look into that more. Like if there was erratic, like cutting them off and actually breaking moving violations, like I would get that. But if they weren't, but nevertheless, they were very distracting because, you know, they're taking pictures and trying to get certain views that was, you know, distracting to, say, a driver. If that falls in line. Now that's in England, might have different rules, but
such as commanding bystanders
let's go back 5.
Control with incidental effects on First Amendment rights, such as commanding bystanders to disperse from a traffic stop when a detained individual is armed. Police officers might also be able to arrest auditors who commit crimes during recording, such as disorderly conduct, stalking, trespass, or harassment. In fact, in April 2021, Texas First Amendment auditors Joey Perez and Paul Estrada IV were arrested in connection with 2 separate auditing incidents. According to the police, and bear in mind this is coming from the police, the pair had a history of inserting themselves into active police scenes, getting in close proximity to police and their vehicles, standing in roadways, and shining lights from their cameras in the eyes of the police officers.
Whoa,
and some auditors
Molotov.
regularly scream profanity at police officers in a provocative way, and have otherwise engaged in activity that has caused some to be successfully prosecuted for disorderly conduct.
Okay, so activists found guilty for disorderly conduct during the incident. So, okay, can you run up to the cop's face and yell profanity at them? Could you do, I mean, are you allowed to do that to somebody else? There's those free speech absolutists that say you can say like that kind of derogatory language right into somebody's face, but comes to do a threat. Now, obviously, if this guy actually threatened to shoot them, then yeah, there's a line crossed there. But if he hadn't done that, would he be within his rights to do what he was doing?
In 2019, Jesus Padilla, known as Mexican Padilla on YouTube, was convicted on 3 counts of disorderly conduct following an incident in which he followed 3 San Antonio SWAT officers leaving a police station and bombarding them with profanity and homophobic slurs. Padilla contends that cursing, which he does in many of his videos, is constitutionally protected since he did not threaten any violence. In fact, courts have long held that profane language is constitutionally protected speech. In the famous case of Cohen versus California, the Supreme Court overturned a man's breach of the peace conviction after he was arrested for wearing a jacket reading "fuck the draft" in a Los Angeles courtroom. And in 2015, the Washington Supreme Court reversed a teenager's conviction for obstructing law enforcement for yelling,
profanity is protected
Seattle police officers abusive names, and using profanity while the officers investigated a disturbance, which has all led to criticism of First Amendment audits. In recent years, First Amendment audits have expanded into its own social media subculture, with self-appointed auditors live streaming their public encounters on YouTube and Instagram. To critics, these auditors are not standing up for constitutional rights as much as they are interfering with police officers, harassing public employees, and purposefully picking fights.
Okay, just again, look, Kern County Transparency, this channel, 101,000 subscribers. Tyrant Bandito gets owned and dismissed for unlawfully threatening us with arrest for filming in public. Okay, so so if you watch this channel, you're somebody that supports the First Amendment people. Now, I'm going to predict this too, because I feel like there's probably also another part of this First Amendment community of people that like to watch First Amendment auditors get in trouble, like actually get arrested. Like that's something I noticed when I was first looking into like the sovereign citizen people, that there's like the sovereign citizen channels where they go and they talk about their rights and all their beliefs. But then there's also like equally as popular channels of like watching them get owned. You know what I mean? So I'm going to guess that there is probably something like that. And it's probably the same type of people that love to see these type of people, Sov Cits and First Amendment auditors, get, you know, busted. Am I right on that?
For clicks and cash. In a June 2021 video shared with tens of thousands of followers, 32-year-old Sean Paul Reyes, aka Long Island Audit, filmed at a public library even though it was unauthorized to film at the library due to purported privacy reasons. In the video, Reyes refused to budge, prompting a confrontation with Danbury police and shouts,
"Dude, why you gotta be such a tyrant?
You gotta be such a tyrant."
And there are plenty of auditors like Reyes who relish in confrontational
But that's what I want to know. Why? I get you're going to see a cop at a scene of a crime or something, but filming in the library, why do you want to do that? What is it you're trying to film? Like just citizens that are out reading books and stuff? That seems kind of weird. You know what I mean? Like, what crimes are they trying to prevent from happening? That's where it gets kind of hard to, I don't know if I say side with those First Amendment auditors, is some of these places. Why do that?
To elicit a reaction from their subjects. This includes berating subjects with profane language, being intentionally rude and uncooperative when questioned, or engaging in borderline harassment or intimidation, like openly carrying firearms
and walking
in public buildings.
AR-15 to promote
now, many public officials do acknowledge the right to film, if for no other reason that sometimes First Amendment auditors are able to launch successful lawsuits against state and public officials for infringing their First Amendment rights. And as a result, some state governments and police organizations issue guidance on how to respectfully deal with First Amendment auditors, as to avoid having to pay large settlements to
auditors. Wow. So is it pretty common that these guys, these First Amendment auditors, they'll go somewhere, test it, get arrested, and then sue and then win and in damages? Is this another thing maybe why some of them do it, is to, it's the equivalent of jump in front, like walking in front of a moving car, so you can get like insurance settlement from the driver. You think there are people that do that too? They're hoping to get arrested so they can do a lawsuit and get some, money. I mean, some might be saying they're doing it for what they're hoping is the impact it'll have to make accountability better. But is there a financial benefit to that too?
Other public officials have found, let's say, creative and improper ways to try to limit public filming. For example, some public officials have adopted a tactic of playing copyrighted songs in an effort to cause live streaming videos to get automatically blocked by Instagram or YouTube. For example, in 2021, First Amendment Auditor Senate Devermont, who runs the Instagram account Always Film the Police, live streamed himself delivering a FOIA request to the Beverly Hills Police Department. However, in two separate encounters, a sergeant pulled out his phone to blast Sublime's Santa Rita.
Great song, by the way.
Seemingly aware of what he was doing. And while that police officer may not practice Santeria, he appeared to have a crystal ball. Other police officers made headlines when they blasted Taylor Swift during an arrest.
R.I.P. the singer,
Other localities
by the way.
have instituted time, place, and manner restrictions. In 2020, the city of Tucson, Arizona, passed an ordinance allowing officers to designate a restricted area around a crime scene within which it is illegal to knowingly interfere with law enforcement in the course of their official duties. The ordinance was enacted in response to footage showing a First Amendment auditor berating a female Tucson officer with several minutes of uninterrupted profanities and gendered slurs during a traffic stop. According to the chief of police, the traffic stop in the viral video involved a car full of robbery suspects, and the ordinance sought to prevent auditors from interfering with police work. 2 years later, the Arizona State House passed a bill making it illegal to film police officers within 8 feet, reduced from the original proposal of 15 feet. The bill...
I mean, I guess that changes it, because I can totally understand that you could be somebody interfering with police doing their job, and they're not doing anything wrong. They're just trying to get to a place, and you could literally get in their way. Again, like I was saying earlier, it could delay them if they're trying to help somebody that's in a health crisis, or they're hurt, and they slow them down, they impede them in some way. But yeah, trying to come up with rules. They said they were trying to change it from 15 feet to 8 feet. So it's like, what range? And I think I can get behind that. At some point, you can be a hindrance to very much legal procedures that police are doing.
Allowed recording if the individual recording is at the center of police contact or is an occupant in a stopped vehicle, so long as they don't interfere with the police action. But according to one local Arizona radio station, the bill would have made the George Floyd bystander video a crime. So this raises the question, are First Amendment auditors constitutional warriors spurring real change, or trolls out for profit? Critics can point to countless examples of First Amendment auditors who appear to be motivated by fame or clicks or cash rather than the Constitution. Even among those sympathetic to the movement, it's hard to see how harassing patrons at post offices and public libraries or filming outside a synagogue serves any purpose beyond attempting to go viral. But auditors are not a monolith, and there's countless individuals auditing organizations who do good work. Thanks to the educational efforts and legal advocacy of groups like PINAC, the ACLU, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, or FIRE, the public is well aware of their constitutional rights to film in public. And although federal efforts at police reform have arguably stalled, advocates can point to real policy change at the state and local levels thanks to bystander and audit videos. And who knows how many untold instances of police misconduct have been documented thanks to people with cell phone cameras.
For sure.
So seriously, it depends. But it's only a matter of time before another First Amendment auditor ends up...
I know that's such like a lazy answer, but like, that's what I'm coming away with my first reaction to these guys. It's like, they can provide a very good service, but they can also be not just annoying, but like detrimental and distracting to people doing their things. When you're going into a place where no crime is committed and you're not even suspecting a crime or some kind of mishap or some wrongdoing, and you're trying to create drama, that's where I'm like, no, like, I don't think, yeah, going to the library and just like there's security guards and you're just going to go test them like with that when they should be doing their job, like you're distracting from their job. That seems kind of weird. But if you're like very much somebody that's sees and has a good idea that something wrong could be happening, something's happening. Again, the police are chasing down somebody and you want to make sure everything looks okay and everything's by the book, or you're in a perfectly legal, say like a protest, and the police come right to the protest, like filming them because, you know, there's precedent that something could happen. You know, you've seen that, but there's like, then there's one just where they're trying to create the drama. That's where it's like, ah, man, that's where you're actually, it's almost like you're doing an injustice to the whole system that way. And I do hope, and I said this at the beginning, that those people don't just, if you are trying to antagonize and create the drama, that you are noting when the police are doing the right thing, that they're not trying to hold you back. And I have no idea if that happens or if it's just, they just only post the bad interactions. Like you got to have it both ways. You got to be able to praise when it's good and criticize when it's bad. That's what I think. All right. Well, that was my first exposure to First Amendment auditors. And I think, I guess, just in summary, sometimes it looks like they can be doing good things, but it also seems like they can actually create more harm than good. That's just in my initial reaction. There's sounds like a whole community and a whole thing going on here that I don't know about and probably have to learn a lot about. But let me know what you guys know. If you're watching this, there's probably a good chance that this is already something you've looked into. Are you the type that would like to go and watch First Amendment auditors go and test this stuff? Are you one that thinks they're just crazy and they're idiots, and maybe you like to watch the content of them getting owned, getting arrested or something? Let me know. And if you want me to continue to cover this kind of stuff, I've had a lot of fun, covering things like First Amendment things, or now this First Amendment auditors, sovereign citizens, conspiracy stuff like flat earthers. If that's other stuff you'd like to see, and if I can add some kind of context as a history teacher, let me know if you wanted me to keep looking at that stuff. Recommend me videos, especially over on the Discord server. And obviously the more I get that requested, the more likely it is that I'll cover it. All right, with that, we'll see you all next time.